Hi everyone, my name is David Lee, and today I'd like to talk about how to design and implement your Azure Blueprint. Before we begin, I'd like to talk a little bit about a use case so that it will better help us better understand um, how we can think about designing an Azure Blueprint. So in this example, we have this company called Contoso, who are planning to deploy several applications to the cloud, but they would like to set up the necessary guardrails for the development teams. And their IT department says that they require resources to only be created in the US and only within specific regions. They also require that any secrets be stored in Azure Key Vault, but developers should not have direct access to those secrets. And so there is going to be some managed identity assignments, which will help us in this context and help us enforce the least privilege principles. Um, Contoso also requires that all resources be tagged with a resource owner, and that if there's any changes made to their subscription, in terms of the policies that we are going to be applying, right, those are going to be audited. So let's take a look at how we are going to design the Azure Blueprint. And in this example or in this implementation design here, we can see that Contoso IT will be deploying to two resource groups. The first resource group is a shared resource group, right? So like all shared resources will be created in this resource group. Only Contoso IT will have access to this resource group, and their development teams will have access to their individual resource group. So the way that this is going to work is we have a application identity or a managed identity created in the application specific resource group, which is the app1rg, and it will be assigned the Azure Key Vault secret user. Um, so any services like app service, can be assigned that identity and automatically have access to Azure Key Vault, right? Just because of that role assignment of Azure Key Vault user. There's also going to be tagging being applied with the resource purpose and owner on the two resource groups that we see here. From a subscription level, there's going to be an allowed locations policy being applied. So Azure Blueprint does allow us to have that capability or ability to do this. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. And so there's really three steps in implementing Azure Blueprint, right? Obviously, the first step is to create an Azure Blueprint, and we can certainly do it through the Azure portal or CLI. So there's many methods or ARM templates, right? So there's going to be many methods to creating an Azure Blueprint. Once we've created an Azure Blueprint, right, it's in the draft state, and we will need to publish it as a version, right? Publishing it as a version ensures that you can't really change that later on, right? So there it's a implementation that you feel satisfied, and now you're ready to leverage it. So you publish it with a specific version, and once that version is out there, then you can assign it to a subscription or a management group, right? So there's an assignment process. Again, that can be done through the Azure portal, CLI, ARM template, right? All the normal ways to deploy. So we're gonna take a look at a few examples of how we can implement Azure Blueprints with a few demos on the Azure portal. We'll also try to make use of the export and import feature on the Azure CLI command. And lastly, we're going to take a look at how we can think about implementing an Azure Blueprint via an ARM template. All right, so we'll go to the demo next. All right, so in this demo, I'm going to create an Azure Blueprint from the Azure portal. And we'll start by clicking on a search for blueprints. So once we click on blueprints, we're able to see that we're on the blueprint screen and there's a create button. When we click create, we'll be able to see that there will be several templates available for us to use. For our demo today, we're just going to start with a blank blueprint. So we're going to give the blueprint a name, and I'm just going to name it Contoso Corp. And let's just give it a quick description, right? Blueprint for Contoso. We'll need to define a location for where the blueprint would reside. And just gonna choose my subscription here. I'm gonna click next. This is where we're starting to be able to edit the resources that we can create in Azure Blueprint. So I'm gonna create two different resource groups. We can click on the list here and you can see that we can have a variety of options. We can actually have an ARM template as well. Policy assignment, role assignment. But in this particular case, we're going to do a resource group. We're going to first create our shared services resource group. And I'm just going to give it a name, Contoso Shared Services. Now, notice that we can actually parameterize the group name. In our case, we're not. We're just going to name it Contoso Shared Services. I am going to create this in Central US. And obviously, we have stacks. The purpose of the stack and the owner of the stack. So of the resource group. I'm sorry, for all resources. So in this case, I'm just going to call it shared services for the tag value, and for the owner, I am going to give it the email address of the platform team, which is responsible for maintaining cloud resources, the shared cloud resources. All right, so once I'm done here, I'm going to click add. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the second resource group for the application itself. I'm just going to call it Contoso App 1. Kind of following the naming convention that I have earlier. Again, I'm not gonna parameterize that. I have a location for this application itself. Following the convention, just giving it the purpose, which is for app 1. And the owner would be the development team. So app 1 Contoso.com, which is the development team's email address. I'm going to click add here. So now we have two resource groups being created and maintained by Azure Blueprint. The other resource that I'm going to create for the Contoso app 1 is I'm going to create a user identity, right? So that I can assign it a role. If we recall from the design architecture earlier. So this is going to be a ARM template. I am going to just paste my ARM template here. But you can see this is just a simple manage identity that I'm going to be creating here with the appropriate purpose and the owner, right? Which again, this identity is managed by the platform team. I'm just going to give it a name and a quick description, which is such as key vaults. Okay, and I'm going to add it here. All right. So at the end of the day, we should have two resource groups being created in our subscription. We should have a managed user identity created in the app 1 resource group. So this is just a draft. I'm going to save that. And remember, that we have 3 steps. So the first step is to create an Azure Blueprint. Once we have created that, and we can keep modifying it through the blueprint definition here, which is currently in a draft state. So if once we are ready to publish it with a specific version. And to do that, we can click on the Contoso Corp here, and I am going to publish it with a version. All right, so now that this blueprint has been published, we're going to assign it. And we're going to assign it into a subscription. So let's click on assign. The way that I like to name my assignments is with a specific version, so we can reference it if we need to later on. Again, this is going to be in Central US. So we're going to actually lock the assignment, so do not delete. That means if somebody could accidentally delete the resource group, given the right permission, but the do not delete will lock it. And so if they ever try to delete it, they will actually get an error. So I'm going to click assign here. So now I'm on the step 3, which is assigning the blueprint to a subscription. All right. So right now the blueprint is being assigned, and I am going to check out the assignment status. And we can see that right now it is awaiting to be assigned to the subscription itself. We'll give it a few moments. All right, now we can see that it is being deployed on the changes that we have configured in our Azure Blueprint. It's currently deploying. We'll give it a few more moments for it to finish, and it completed. So now we can go ahead and go back and check our subscription to make sure that the resource groups has been created. We can click back on home. And we'll click on resource group. And we can see that Contoso App 1 has been created, and Contoso Shared Services has been created. With Contoso App 1, we have a managed identity created. There's tagging, as we can see here, on the resource group, as well as the individual resources themselves. And if we go back to the resource groups again and go back to shared resources, yes, we can see that it's been tagged with the necessary resources. So this completes the demo for creating Azure Blueprints through the Azure portal. All right, for this second demo, I am going to create an Azure Blueprint using Azure CLI commands. And just to show everyone, the Microsoft website does document all the blueprint commands on their website. So first of all, let's go ahead and launch the Azure Cloud Shell. And so from Azure Cloud Shell, we do have Azure Blueprints already installed as part of that. So we'll go ahead and do it in Azure Cloud Shell. So the first thing that we want to do is, if you guys, from the first demo, we actually created a Azure Blueprint. And so what I'm planning to do is I will go ahead and export that Azure Blueprint into Cloud Shell here so that we can start to modify it. So I'm using the AZ Blueprint export -- name, Contoso Corp, and then just outputting it to the local. So what will happen is the Contoso Corp folder would be created with all the necessary artifacts and the necessary blueprint template. So go ahead and do that. And we should have a Contoso. I'm just going to clear the screen here, and we should have a Contoso Corp folder. Yep. And let's go ahead and use code to take a look at what is created. So we see that we have a blueprint.json file created, and it does contain the definitions for the resource group that we've created in demo 1, as well as the artifacts, which is the managed user identity that we've created. And so what we'll do is we will go ahead and add the not allowed location policy, and then try to deploy that. So what I'm going to do first of all is I am going to cd to the artifacts folder, and I'm just going to use a simple PowerShell command to create that file, empty file with the not allowed policy name. And so if we do a refresh here, we should be able to see that. All right. And what I'm going to do is just copy that from my handy dandy code that I have already created. So we did talk about having a policy. Sorry, let's go ahead and save here. So we did talk about having a policy that says only create resources in allowed regions in the US. And so what we've done here is we've defined all the allowed locations in US that will allow resources to be created in. So we're going to apply this policy on the subscription level. All right, so let's go ahead and close this and clear the screen here. And what we're going to do here is we will need to import the changes into our Azure Blueprint as version 0.2. So I'm just going to copy a command here. So with AZ Blueprint import, so it's going to import from the local path, and it's going to push it into Contoso Corp. And let's go ahead and run that command. We'll say yes for overriding any unpublished changes. It looks like it worked. So we'll go ahead and go back to Azure Blueprint. So notice that we're still 0.1 because we haven't published that yet, but let's go ahead and take a look. And indeed, we do see now that there is a allowed location policy assignment in place. So we're good there. So the next step that we're going to do is, following the 3 steps, is we will be needing to publish this new version out. So publish doesn't mean assignment. Publish is just saying that there's this version that we've created. So we call it 0.2. And we're going to hit this command here to publish that. All right. So now if we go back to our Azure Blueprint, we should see that changes of 0.2. Yes, now we have the latest version is 0.2 with that allowed location change. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to do the assignment. For the assignment to work, we need the subscription ID and we need the blueprint ID, which is basically just the version that we're going to be assigning to the subscription. So I'm going to run a quick command to get the subscription ID, and I'm also going to run another command to get the blueprint ID, and we're going to get the blueprint ID of version 0.2 as we can see here. All right, so now we're ready to do the assignment, and I am going to paste the command here. So this is AZ Blueprint assignment create, and we're creating this assignment on the subscription. We're using the Contoso Corp, the location in Central US. We're going to use system assigned identity, and the blueprint version is that 0.2 version that we talked about. And we're going to lock the changes. So all resources do not delete is the same one that we've been using. I'm gonna hit enter here, and let's take a look. So it's gonna take a little bit of time for the assignment to take place. So if we go back and we go to assign, we can see that the assignment is actually happening right now, waiting to execute. I did notice that I did not give a name for the assignment, which I should have done as part of the AZ assignment create command. And that should allow me to follow the naming convention for my assignment. So we'll give it a few moments for it to apply the changes. Okay, so we do see that the assignment has completed and successfully. We do see that there's allowed location, which means if we try to go to the resource group and try to create a resource in a not allowed location, it's not going to allow us to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Contoso F1 resource group and try to create a resource that is outside of US, and we'll see if that allows us to do it. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to type in storage. Actually, what I'm going to do is just click on the storage account that I find down here and try to create that in, let's see, we're Canada Central. And now we do see that there's a policy validation error, which shows that the policy is now applied, and it's coming from the Azure Blueprints assignment. All right, in the last part of this demo, we're gonna deploy an Azure Blueprint via an ARM template. I'm not actually gonna deploy it, but I do want to kind of show the structure of the ARM template. So I'm actually using the bicep instead of ARM template, which will actually translate to an ARM template when it's being deployed. So this is really the kind of the suggested way for anyone who is interested in infrastructure as code is to take a look at bicep, which is really a nice way to develop your ARM template, right? So this is what I've done here is in the beginning, and in fact, right, when you start to define your blueprint, the target scope here I have defined is on the subscription level, and this is something that will need to happen when you write your bicep for deploying your Azure Blueprint. The other aspect of when you're starting to write your Azure Blueprint is, you are really targeting. So this is really just a representation of an ARM template, right? Where there's a resource type. And so the resource type in our case is a Microsoft Blueprint resource type, which contains the name. So like Contoso Corp would be the name, but there's other things that are kind of relevant, right? If you recall, right, there's resource groups, and again, in this particular blueprint bicep file, there is that resource group. Resource group 1 is the shared services. Resource group 2 is where we have, for example, some other resources, like a managed identity, right, for example. As we scroll down, right, we start to define the artifacts. And again, remember we had the artifacts folder where we were doing the export and import. So in this case, we continue to have that present as an ARM template. In this particular case, I'm actually doing a role assignment, right? So because what I have here is I need a service principal that exists, that has contributor role assignments in the resource group itself, so that I can do deployment into this resource group, which has the contributor role. Continue scrolling down is, we have additional role assignments in resource group 2. And here's where the allowed locations artifacts, right, or the policy exists, right? So there's a specific way to represent that with the policy assignment as the kind. If we scroll up, right, this line 75, right, again we're seeing something different, which is role assignment. So there's many kinds, and so you just have to define the right ones and as the artifacts. You can continue scrolling down. Is I in fact right in this particular example, I'm actually creating an Azure Key Vault in my shared resources resource group, as represented here, right? Resource group one, and then defining my Azure Key Vault instance here. If I scroll down, right, there are additional users, managed identities, sorry, that are created in resource group two. Made it array so it makes it easier if I have additional assignments that I need to do. This is again, right, this is the reason why I feel like Bicep is a good way to write your ARM template, because of this good way to represent the array, right? Whereas if you're doing an ARM template, it's a little bit hard to read because it's all JSON. All right, so I actually also wrote a PowerShell script that allows me to deploy, and so this is the command, and I'll share this GitHub link out as part of this presentation. But for you to deploy the blueprint, you just have to define the deployments, AZ deployments sub create, and then obviously you're free to make any changes here. But this is really just an ARM template that you're deploying, right? Again, we point directly to the Bicep file, so you don't actually have to translate it into into a JSON ARM template. It directly targets the Bicep, which does the translation internally, and your blueprint will be deployed. So again, I'll share this link out there, but I hope this presentation helps us understand how to design and implement your Azure Blueprint. Thank you so much.